Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good day, wherever you might be tuning in from. This is another Veeam Industry Insights LinkedIn live stream. Joined with me as usual, Jason Buffington. Good morning, Jason. How you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you?
Good, good. You are in Texas. I am in Colorado. I am switching to layers at this point. It's warmed up to 8 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 13 C for those of you, including one of our guests that we're going to be bringing in here shortly. Jason, in Dallas, obviously you've got a short sleeve right now. What's the temperature running about?
Oh, it's mid 60s and clear skies all day today.
So
Like
that's
everywhere
probably
else, right?
cancel the school weather. That sounds a little dicey. We do want to encourage everyone, speaking of geography location, we do have a technology where we can issue a global map. So in our comments, in addition to asking any questions that you may have, yeah, we can see the map on screen now. Please give us a hi, hello, where you're from. We'll revisit this a couple times throughout the broadcast. We'll see how much of the globe we can turn green. But always love to see where people are dialing in from. We've got Germany, Ukraine, we've got Atlanta, Colorado, Texas, and of course our special guest. Why don't we get to him right now? Michael Cade joins us from England. Michael, long-standing member of the Veeam community, but in particular, the reason why we want to have Michael on live today is Michael is a member of what's called the A team, and I don't even want to butcher what that is. So let's let Michael give a little bit of background as a senior global technologist at Veeam. What do you do? What is this A team? And of course, the whole reason we're here, me and Jason invited you in today, is because of NetApp's conference kicking off now. What can you tell us a bit about that as well?
Yeah. So the NetApp A team is very similar to our Veeam Vanguard. So they're community advocates, influencers to a certain degree, where we find technology interesting. We write about that technology, but also behind the scenes, again, very similar to the Vanguards. We invite them in to see our product management, and I get to go to, when we were allowed to travel, get to go to like NetApp HQ over in Sunnyvale, sit down with their product managers about what they're doing, what the vision looks like from a NetApp point of view, and give them advice, give them feedback about what would look better, potentially what the actual like field feedback may look like. I've been in there, I think, 6 years now. So I started when I was a distributor and a reseller, and then carried that on as I moved into Veeam, and obviously had different feedback wheels as that happened. Now I have a very, very Veeam centric feedback wheel, but also I speak to a lot of customers that have both our technology and theirs. So that helps from an engineering discussion on both sides of the fence as well. So write a lot of blogs on exactly NetApp technologies that interest me. Not all of it interests me, but some of it does. And I write about what I believe to be relevant and interesting.
Yeah, cool. And let's bring up our first slide here. I built up a very crude slide that give you a little bit of a commercial here. Speaking of traveling, here's Michael cleaned up and in a sharp dress suit, no less, at a live event. But also do want to give a shout out to your blog, Vzilla. A lot of great stuff out there. It's not just Veeam, by the way. There's some great, interesting things. I will tell you, I've drafted off of Michael's work, pioneering efforts around PC technology, built a new server, as many of us did during the pandemic. So in my house, I have a saying. It's called "Blame Michael Cade" whenever we see the credit card bills that have come through. So yeah, check out Vzilla, vzilla.co.uk. Great stuff there. Hey, Jason, this is the kickoff for our conference, or our attendance and appreciation of being a great partner with NetApp. It's NetApp's conference, but you've got a neat little slide about what we've been doing jointly, meaning the two companies.
Yeah, for the last a decade or more, if you go all the way back in time, for as long as folks have been trying to modernize data protection, most folks realized early on, if we can go to the partnership slide, most folks recognize early on that if you're really going to shrink data protection beyond just nightly backup, It was going to include replication, and really it ought to be including snapshotting as part of that. And nobody does snapshotting like NetApp, right? So certainly early on in our career, the ability for Veeam to partner with NetApp and say, okay, how do we really provide comprehensive data protection? And so you can see on here, so we started with joining into the Alliances program, and then over time, Veeam has continued to embrace snapshotting as another set of verbs, if you will, in data protection. So if you think about like in traditional backup, you have dailies, weeklies, monthlies. We call that grandfather, father, son. When you think about how snapshotting and replication works in that dynamic, it's like grandfather, father, son, and puppy. It's another layer deeper in that race to zero for reducing data loss and increasing the agility. And so having a partnership that's built on these two coming together has made so much sense, and our shared customers certainly have reaped the benefits of that.
Yeah, outstanding. And I do want to bring up maybe one more, I'll call it a setup slide, but it's a little bit of a brag slide at the same time. If you're familiar with Gartner and their methodology, the Magic Quadrant's pretty well known in the industry. In two respective markets, meaning two different Magic Quadrants, the one for backup and recovery solutions over on the left and the one for storage arrays over on the right. Certainly when we look at Veeam and we look at NetApp, the placement as devised by Gartner analysts of where the two companies sit optically, both in the leaders quadrant, visually, obviously both highest in terms of the y-axis or ability to execute. You can see there's a lot of other vendors in the space that both are mature areas, but don't confuse maturity for lack of innovation. There is still a great deal of innovation taking place. One of the reasons, like Jason pointed out, Veeam is really keen to partner with NetApp is that there's some fundamentally differentiated and long-standing differentiated technology that's at play there. Before we kind of double-click on that, let's give an early shout-out to the global view here, meaning the world map. I understand people have already been coming in with some comments. We've got, in the United States, we've got Kansas. We've got, in addition, several other countries, Kosovo, Algeria, India, Cyprus, Jordan, Netherlands, United Emirates, who's been coming on strong lately week after week, Romania, Turkey, Argentina, Democratic Republic of Congo. Jason, I believe that is our first visit from them, so that's outstanding. Saudi Arabia has been very strong lately, so it's wonderful to see so many friends at a variety of hours returning, and great to see new friends join as well. So Jason, maybe before we move off of the Magic Quadrant notion, maybe just a little comment from your perspective on that.
You know, Dave, you and I have both been in this space for a long time. You actually got to, put some of these dots on these Magic Quadrant squares. I got to watch from the outside, but it's been interesting to watch both companies' routes over the last decade. Both of them basically came to market and said, we need to reimagine how to deliver these outcomes. Us on the virtualization backup side, them on how to deliver file as something other than something that was interpreted on top of generic block storage. And while Gartner would never let you actually put the charts over time and watch those little dots, if you've done that on your own, you see how we both start off as vision first, and then little by little usurped what were presumed to be insurmountable leaders, and ended up where we are now in both of our respective categories as vision, execution, and really holding true mind share as well as market share, as being truly disruptive and innovative in our respective spaces.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful observation, Jason. And, we always believe that technology matters. We've just spoken a great deal about technical innovation, and obviously tech does matter. But I think especially in a very, I'll call it somewhat tumultuous time, and we could well be going into an interesting 2021, that vendor viability, ability to execute, ability to appropriately support, meaning customer support, the existing partner ecosystem as well as end customers becomes increasingly vital, as well as the technology itself. But Michael, we brought you here so we could pick on you and pick on your intelligent brain here. Let's double click a little bit now on the product side of things, if we look at some of the key integrations over time, we thought no one more qualified than you, being a NetApp A team member, being longstanding Veeam person as well. There's a rich history here.
Yeah, I think before we get into like the nuts and bolts about what we do, I think another key thing that I really like, obviously being at Veeam, who pay me each month, but also being an advocate for NetApp technologies, is actually, if you look at our vision and strategy, and I know you guys have gone over that cloud data management, the platform, how it looks, how it feels, where anything new, like the Kasten thing last week, you said that will fit into that cloud bucket. We've got the SaaS base, we've got the physical, we've got the virtual, and that's kind of our vision and strategy. That's where we are today, and that's where we're going. And if you look at NetApp, those familiar with that world, they've been speaking about the data fabric for the last, I want to say, at least 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years. And that was very much a vision when it first started, about how we move data here, there, and everywhere in between. And this is a traditional storage company 5 years ago talking about moving data to the cloud, to cloud-based storage, and leveraging their technology and ultimately moving it away from their, let's call it their bread and butter, in that they were selling disk and unified architecture for on-premises data centers. And now, like, the story that they have in the cloud is another interesting, and it's been a really cool development to sit alongside from a partner point of view, but also as a bit of a fan of their technology, is another big area around driving that that their data fabric message, where you couldn't buy it, or you still can't buy the data fabric story or vision, but there's a lot more parts to that now. It's like a bicycle wheel with the spokes in. They've now put more spokes into the wheel. They've got more options, more flavors in which you can do and how you can achieve it. And I think that's very similar to what we're doing by bolstering our platform, obviously in relatively different places. Obviously, we're focusing on data protection and leveraging data, but their lifeblood is all about data and movement of that data and storing that data. So there's a lot of not so much overlap, but there's definitely there's so much more synergy in there than we've seen anywhere else. So, but I think the key part as well is that one of the integration points that we started like way back in 2015, 2016, one of the reasons why I came to Veeam was looking into this storage integration, because I was a NetApp administrator. I was going out and I was installing stuff, and I saw, Veeam's integrating with ONTAP and storage snapshots. Let's have a look at that and let's see more about that. And that was one of my first blogs on Veeam back in the day, prior to being in the mothership. But and that backup from storage snapshot, as Jason kind of alluded to, around offering, and this goes an industry-wide conversation around backups versus snapshots, and it's not that at all, and it's never be that.
Yeah, we could
start a bar fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Backups versus snapshots, absolutely.
But
throw in tape is dead, and we can definitely make this an hour conversation.
Yeah, and so the common like, I always bring it up first, so that it's like getting the first punch in, but exactly how Jason described it is that, so a backup is a point in time copy of your data that lives in a completely different file format away from your production system. But a snapshot is absolutely a point in time and allows you to recover that, and it gives you better RPOs, potentially better RTOs from that point of view as well, because the nature of the storage snapshot, combine them two together, you really fix, or you've got such a tight RPO that allows you to recover from most scenarios, hopefully very fast, rather than having to go to that backup. But that backup's there just in case anything bigger and more failure was to occur. And I think that's the first part of really our story when it comes to ONTAP in general, but also think about NetApp HCI. That integration point has always grown with the partnership as well, but it started with ONTAP, which, if you look at NetApp's portfolio platform, that ONTAP is the blood that goes between the veins, right? It's everywhere. So being able to integrate into that snapshot engine is first and foremost the real benefit there. And this is from a VMware perspective, is being able to protect those VMs without the requirement of having a VMware snapshot open for too long. And that's really the cut and dry option there. But then we still were able to orchestrate snapshots. So like exactly that. Again, we can get down to now like 15 minutes, depending on the change. We could go even further than that. And then you've got a set of snapshots that allow you to roll back to a specific point in time, application consistent, and all of that good stuff, all using Veeam technology without installing any agents anywhere. So then too, we're kind of like and being able to not only snapshot orchestrate on the primary ONTAP system, but also trigger the SnapMirror or SnapVault to a secondary ONTAP system. Things like that. We didn't do that with any other vendor for years. So when I first saw this integration point, I thought, oh, we're doing something different with NetApp, and we absolutely were. This was guiding the light of what we needed to be doing from a snapshot and backup point of view, reducing the impact of performance of your production vSphere environment, giving you a tighter RPO, RTO to be able to recover as fast as possible if something was to happen, rather than having to go to potential backup storage. And then that's a continuation onto, well, recovery has to be granular, has to be able to, like, how can we go into that snapshot, even if we haven't created that snapshot, and be able to pull out individual items. And they were really the first three elements of that integration point into Veeam and NetApp, and ONTAP in particular.
You know, you got to give NetApp credit, right? So when they were first coming on board, and in fact, we talked a little bit about this last week when we had Kasten on as well, and everyone who missed it should definitely go back and watch the Kasten one. But Michael, you mentioned how important the data fabric as a concept has been to NetApp for the last several years, and that recognition that, you know, data is gonna exist on multiple platforms, right? And that secret sauce is how do you consistently deliver that, and that's what ONTAP gives you. The other thing that you got to give NetApp credit for was the concept of integrated data protection. They knew from the very beginning that as part of that part of their storage platform needed to not only deliver snapshots, arguably better than anybody else, but also enable an ecosystem that was well behaved for the sake of data protection. And so making those connection points for SnapMirror and cloning and offloaded replication, all of those connection points were never an afterthought in the NetApp ecosystem. And pick any other one of those storage vendors on that MQ chart. For most of them, integrating with data protection technologies was a bolt-on afterthought. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it made so much sense to partner with NetApp along the way, was because they understood data protection should be foundational in your production infrastructure. And that enabled us then to really build upon that and deliver some really cool outcomes.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And we talk a lot about a continuum of different data services, data management platform capabilities. I think that's what I've heard you exemplify, Michael, and Jason, you double click on as well, is that it was innate. And really, you know, there's two primary things that you do in the data center repeatedly back when we were all in the data center. You provision storage and you protect storage, and that cycle just continually repeats. Now the destination, the location of where that's happening might have broadened a bit, but those fundamental constructs still remain. And that ecosystem of core integrations that you've shown, I think it might be interesting to double click a little bit further on that. Before we do, let's revisit the world map. I think we've got some additional countries that may have come into play here. I'm being told that we've got Morocco, Brazil, Vietnam, Tunisia, South Africa.
You can always count on South Africa joining.
It's amazing. Like the last month, or maybe it's a month and a half, Jason, they've been coming on strong. New Hampshire, in the United States. So appreciate all of that. Appreciate everyone. And also a quick commercial. If you do want to ask a question while we have Michael with us, feel free to interject that in the comments as well. Florida also just came in. Brilliant.
Yeah,
so
is there a way like we can like incentivize, like if you can ask a NetApp or a storage-based data protection question that Michael can't answer, can we send like a £5 gift card or something? Just to, I'd really love to stump Michael today. I think that'd be fun, but maybe not.
We'll send him his personal Raspberry Pi. Although I think you've got like about a dozen Raspberry Pis now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I've been using them for some little projects around like ESXi ARM and various different home automation projects as well. Just
Brilliant.
use the hashtag blame Michael Cade if you have to buy it and justify it to the better half.
Yeah,
Now you
actually,
can
I
orchestrate
use
those with VAO, right? I mean, we could actually, you could fail over from one Pi to another, or maybe make the coffee maker or the Lego machine work.
Yeah. I could
Let's
get
see a
the
blog
sum of
come.
that. We've been building robots recently using Python scripts. Yeah, it's been interesting. But
let's
yeah.
double click on that, because those that may not be familiar, VAO is our Veeam availability orchestration platform. And we've had a number of iterations on that. The first iteration looked at Veeam software-based or server-based replication. The second version focused on Veeam backup, orchestrating, automating that. But Michael, the third instantiation of VAO or Veeam Availability Orchestrator focused on leveraging NetApp infrastructure, NetApp storage arrays. Take us through a little bit about that and about what that actually brings over and above native platform capabilities.
Oh yeah. So the biggest thing around any like disaster recovery or being able to fail over to a secondary location, and that doesn't have to be a disaster for us to be able to do that, right? Weather's constantly changing how we react between east and west in the US and everywhere else in the world. Just a weather front could change where you potentially run that data. And I think the Veeam Availability Orchestrator, as much as it was focused on disaster recovery, business continuity to begin with, it's not just that. It's an orchestration engine that enables data from site A to site B, or location A to location B. And I think that should be the first port of call for moving data on top of VBR. I think what we've done exclusively with VAO in version 3 with the integration into ONTAP is we'll be able to take advantage of storage snapshot technology that these guys pioneered years ago with the redirect on write snapshots. But we bring that element of, well, let's bring some application consistency that let's manage that data, manage that workload in a consistent state. We're going to wrap that around in not only source VM storage, send it over, say, for example, what we do within Veeam Backup Replication, which works for a large amount of customers, but let's wrap them around in an actual application group, a 3-tier cluster, like a 3-tier app or bigger. Have them in one big group, and then let's send them over at the same time in an application consistent state. On top of that, and this kind of goes back to the last piece of the puzzle that I didn't touch on here with Veeam Data Labs, and being able to leverage some more of the technology that NetApp have brought into ONTAP, is around FlexClone. So again, those familiar with ONTAP and FlexClone, it's been there for years. This is about making those snapshots available to publish out to whatever that needs to be, in our case, vSphere, and it enables you to have a point-in-time copy of your data on performance storage, but it's not taking up any additional storage because it's that redirect. It's just pointing to the blocks of data without going into the weeds. It's pointing to the same blocks of data as production, and all of the new writes are now going to a write cache. What we've done here, and this is both in VBR as well as VAO, it enables us to leverage that FlexClone, that copy of that snapshot, to perform tests, but also to then start to get something out of that data. Think about all of the snapshots, all the data that's stored within the production volume, both on the primary, but also that secondary, that snap mirrored or snap vaulted copy of that data. Automate that FlexClone process, which I remember doing a video demo of it about 3-4 years ago, called FlexClone on steroids, which is the automated approach of being able to. So Veeam takes away that manual task of, we're going to make the FlexClone, we're going to present it to our vSphere environment, we're going to import all of the VMs from that volume that we want to use, we're going to change all of the networking so it doesn't affect our production, we're then going to power them up in the order that we want to power them up, and then we're going to run our test to make sure everything's good, or maybe a DBA needs to add some tables or do what DBAs do in there, and then we're going to remove that from the inventory, we're going to pull it all down. Basically what Veeam does is automate that whole process and gives you an environment on very storage efficient snapshots. So we're not taking up any additional space, but now the DBA is not running from a backup repository, so potentially should be slower slower tier storage in your production. If not, that's a different story, and we should have a chat about that. But what that allows us to do is, well, now your DBA is getting performance as well. So that he's cloning performance. We're automated that. We're giving it out to a set of DBAs or a set of group of people that could do something with that data, reuse that for something to better the business. And that's ultimately then, if we think about what does DR testing look like, well, let's simulate that. Let's make sure it comes up on that secondary location. Let's make sure the application stack all comes up in the order that we want it to. We want to run some tests against it in that isolated environment. We want to make sure that the VM, the OS, and the app all talk to each other and make sure everything's good. And that just kind of ties a nice little bow on what we've done from an exclusive with NetApp here. And this was released, I want to say, at the midway part of 2020. So
yeah,
we've been talking about it for a while, right?
Yeah, it was a summer kind of thing. Hey, let's go back to those 5 scenarios really quick, because I think you've actually organically covered a lot of them, right? So we just got done talking about going from right to left. We covered data labs and leveraging that data in different ways. Certainly the center of that screen, number 3, we talked a lot about snapshot orchestration, also backing up from snapshots, and you've seen that over the years. Just for a short link, the explorers let you actually, of course, browse those snaps, and even if we didn't make them, you can still dig into them. We have to give just a minute of time, and I know for a time check we got 3 minutes left, but talk to us for just a minute about NAS. Has been around for a long time. We actually didn't back up NAS for a good part of our history, but give us 60 seconds on why we leapfrogged our NAS file backup capabilities on this slide, and then we should probably start to wrap up.
Well, to be fair, we did have NDMP and NAS capabilities, but I would say we didn't have a comprehensive capability. So to your point now, Michael, we did leapfrog with version 10 enhanced NAS, in my opinion.
Yeah, and for the 60-second overview of what it is that, well, because we stood back and looked at the NAS environments and how people were protecting this unstructured data, it's a very good way of being able to understand all of the challenges that people have in that space as well, right? NDMP-based solutions are generally slower. They're limited into how you recover from them, how you actually get the data out. And I think that the key part to what we've done so far, because there's more to come from a NAS point of view with Veeam NAS backup, is how we approach. We stick to that agnostic approach to being able to protect any NAS, including ONTAP and their SMB and NFS, but we don't care what that source looks like, and we'll just back it up, including Windows and Linux file servers. The real fruit of that, the capability that we saw, was around change file tracking. How can we on day one take that full backup? I keep saying that we're not magicians. We have to take a full backup. Anyone that doesn't is lying, and it's not a backup. And then thereafter, we're taking incrementals forever. So we never have to go back. We can if you really need us to, but ultimately that should be a full backup. And then we're only going to take the changes since the last backup happened. And that's a key differentiator there as well for us. I think that was 60 seconds.
Yeah, we'll give you definitely an A+ on that one, and definitely agree. We did have a comment about, can we share the presentation? I don't actually think we can append presentations themselves, although I might make a screen grab of the core integration slide here. I think we might be able to post that. Now, as we begin to wrap up, do want to give a quick shout out to the world map again. I think we've got now 22 countries that came in. So big thanks to that. Yeah, we did add Poland. Even after, if you're watching this on demand, please continue to put in the comments. We actually do track this, and it's great fun for me and Jason, but as well as the entire Veeam team, to see who's coming in from where. Thank you so much for joining, Michael. And as we look ahead, in the United States, there's Halloween coming up towards the end of this week, and we've got Gilbert Lowe, and who else do we have? We have Nikki Batista joining Gil as well. So instead of Halloween, as we call it, Halloween is going to be on LinkedIn Live this Friday. And then 1 week from today, Jason and I are going to be back talking about backup and cybersecurity, how they're totally different, or are they? So we'll tease that for you to join now for a week later. Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks everyone for joining. Stay safe, stay positive, and we'll see you on the next live stream.